blade and spear, shield and stone. To arms! They come! They... What? A Paxeltech. A terrible wonder, even for one who has seen many wonders. If its kind walk yesh a foreigner, then surely the wheel of the world is set to turn again. Perhaps it will grind me at last. Pain now outweighs peace in the measure of my days. God murderer. The traveler tried once. She came upon me at first light, when the dew had not yet fallen from the grass. A carpenter, and daughter of a carpenter who was a carpenter's son. The branches took her at what? I wonder if her saw is still clenched within her fair hand. How came I to this wretched state? Its eyes reached the question. Before its tongue left home or hearth, the tumbling ruin beneath its tender pads was once a fortification, an encircling bulwark to the greatest conurbation ever brought forth on Asia's soil. Such faith we put in its solidity. Merchant and marshal, peasant, but a wall is a false god. Built to crumble, the rifts open swiftly. They split the bulwarks, and the pus poured through on tangled wooden limbs. Yes, the final calamity. Their numbers and teeming with lot ruined, so that I might not even visit Charnel. Yes, the final calamity. Their numbers for 40 days. We fought them on these steps. That we knew the children would be next. And so, we flung our very bodies into the breach. Some were torn apart like green shoots in a eye stuck. Anguished cork, it seethes around me. It waits to disgorge. Please, Paxeltech, wanderer, it who would do right, put its edge to this cursed snarl. Vent its rage upon it. I shall greet death as an old friend, and we shall go destroy the knot. Am I? Is this real? Or has insensate madness claimed me? Paxeltech, I have not tasted air unmixed with the foul humors of the tango in an age's age, nor did I dream that I ever might again, much less feel the soft touch. Faithless have I been, and yet Paxeltech came, with war in its right hand, and temperance in its left, the two-handed warrior. It has my allegiance, whatever may come. Paxeltech have a gift for death, this much is true, but they are not all destroyers. Perhaps if it fights with us, perhaps the root may yet be crushed under the wheel of time. Take this, though it be a relic of we lamer, stewards of death. Wield it in defense of life. I think I shall linger here a while yet. Many are those who fell on these blood-soaked steps. No, some are now naught but bones. They each deserve the funerary rites of royalty. These I shall endeavor to complete with whatever time is left to me. If its road should ever wind this way again, grace me with a visit. There are yet tales of Yesha, I might tell it, if it cares to hear them shared. On the contrary, it has... let us first be properly... Oh, I gloried in that title. Would that I had known a funerary priest of the deathless, one who wraps the powerful in glory, and a Muslim who seals this. We guarded the flesh of the great and sought their resurrection. I relish the favor of her perm for many epochs. The highborn did not fear but there are other ways to die. If life could be taken, could it not? This was the province of... But let us start at the beginning. Would it hear the history of the pan? In the time before time, it is said that there came a great plague and yielded only, with his flock drowning in woe, the leader of the... with their god of many faces cutting the waves before them, the vaunts prayed and the red widows wept, for no one knew if the dark sea 100 days lit the 100 but on the 101st day, as the red widow in the form singing glory, Yesha rose like the dawn before them. And in those days, there was no empress. There were no queen. It was only agreed that the Vaughn's spoke for the many-faced one. It had been ever thus. Now, the king who was, him known to the pan as Colket the War-handed, later Colket the Woe-begone, and at last as Colket the Wise. Quick of blade was he in his youth, a fearsome but the exploits of youth brought Colket no peace in age. Fate offered a choice. Flee the land of his father. Colket hesitated no more in pilgrimage than he had in war. He sailed from the place that was with a heart. He passed in peace before the crossing's end. The god of many faces had been with the none speak of a time before its guardianship. It was a god as real as a god one could visit, a god one could touch. It more would I have it here of this, for this tendril for 80 days the Vaughn's fell prostrate. They prayed for a sign that our searching was over, and that on the 80th day, two forms emerged from the depths of the jungle. Where it walked, the soil gave forth, but behind the doe came another. Surely, this great beast was a portent, yet desperate were these threadbare priests of old. And why not? The doe fills all who glimpse it with. It leaps among the shrub and bramble even now. Even with Yeshus, there are those who think it more than a spirit, a god in way. The carpenter's daughter was one such. May her spirit roam the forest alongside the doe, forever free. Those who glimpse the doe often glimpse the wolf. For to hear those early vaunts tell it, a simple deception but a far-reaching one. What must it be to spend an eternity chasing? For the wolf and the doe have often met. Antler and the doe may spill the wolf's blood, and the wolf, Yesha itself, forbids it. With the assurance of the vaunts, the Pan were born who had never known the land. One such was called Genus. She was but 15 springs when, as Genus approached the door, and it was the Red Widows who ushered the Pan. But Genus's malady was known to the widow, to her, to the elder Pan. It seemed the plague at Genus was shunned. None among them could have foreseen. Plague-ridden and scorned, the Red Widow Genus had been cast into the jungle to be forgotten. But after many days in the jungle, the Pan were humbled, for all signs of plague had fascinated. All assembled to hear. Genus spoke of a vision that had come upon her. Pan, young and old, wailed, but then, when all seemed lost, a great tree, this tree, the Thane, she named it, the Pan embraced it, and their glory stretched on. Genus rose to power on this. Inspired by spreading her message of doom, the Red Widows were easy converts, inclined to believe. In time, they held more sway. Among the Red Widows, Genus was quickly. The jungle receded from the shore. It is difficult to say. Suffice to say, there is enough truth to her vision for me, and yet, in knowing her, many seasons passed, and Genus grew in her 77th winter. The Thane called to her. 500 Pan were assembled to undertake the. Many imagined they would never see their. Those that lived long enough came to know the taste. Now as young and beautiful as the day she first beat, she had been reborn a second time. For years they searched the forest, battling hunger. Many succumbed to death. By the 21st spring, only 5. It was they whom she led. It was they who tasted the fruit. No plague has touched the Pan since. But calamity wears faces nearly as unless I am much mistaken. The Empress lives yet. If the Pan vanish from Yesha, with death thus leashed, the eternal Genus and her great ziggurats were hewn from the living rock, and Genus's prophecies all came about. Say, what of the great calamity? But none worried, save a few vaunts. The old ways were dying, and no achievement seemed beyond the reach of. It was then that the wolf came. But the story of Yesha is the story. 49 immortals begat many more. They traded favor with the Empress, traded years of life itself like fishmongers at market. They called it the Ravager. The very obsidian, it sprang from the jungle as sudden as a squall. It made fear fell like night across the empire. Death roamed Yaesha. There were those who would have seen the beast slain, but the Ravager was never much glimpsed. The green things of the jungle sprang from the red doe's feet. Who knew what would become of the doe if the Ravager were fed? Who knew what would become? It was the twice humbled Vaughns who kept the empire, for the Vaughns had pondered the beast since it first appeared to. It was they who had learned to listen to Aethir's song. They will balance return. The song of all living things. It permeates our forest. It wisps. The Vaughns devote themselves to the song. They play it to tap its power, as those attuned in prayer hear it strongest. Even a Paxeltech. Who is to say? For that was hardly the last. With the Ravager appeased, the Empress dreamed of the Thane tree. That of the fruit. For many lifetimes her permanence hid this knowledge from all. She had amassed a great store of fruit, and surely why crack the very bedrock of hers? But the tree's decline could not be arrested. Fruit was rationed. We lay there, once prepared for the final death of death. Now we found ourselves winding wizened noble. Perhaps what came next was inevitable. Rebellion, insurrection, revolt. This was the fire that was to sweep through Yaesha's jungle. For a life of lifetimes, the Eternal Empress had hidden but like the Vaughns of old, had underestimated the power. Genus herself failed to foresee the power. Navoon was one of her eternity. I know only that she had no taste for the Empress's deceptions. Her words found home in the ears of the gull. No slaves could hope to challenge the power of an immortal artist. But what about a nobility in disarray? They rose, first singly. Ever was Gina served by the Red Widows. She was still some among the widows' ranks forswore tenderness. Gina's herself had been the lowest widow. How fitting, then, that the last and least of her own widow. It bridled when I called it God-murderer. Surprised I am that it should know so. Let us walk those prints. It has heard of Yaesha at civil war, of slave with blade of into that tempest. Walked one of its kind, Paxeltech. Whatever its motive. Hither came, even as the pan turned a ravenous gaze toward our god of many faces. Remained satisfied with this. It was an ever-present comfort. A guardian, the destroyer, Paxeltech. Oh yes, its kind. Drove its blade. We knew not that it was, but in death, many faces' absence was soon felt. In her world already top travelers spoke of
Pra quem
twisted
tá
horrors
falhando
on the
aí,
road.
ele tá falando do primeiro jogo, quando o carinha, o protagonista matou o defensor do mundo deles ali.
Who knew that the very air could rip, that the world itself could tear and spill. Oh, how we fought. Priest, our world's lifeblood, drizzling through our finger, most perished. I thought our tale told. Our race run, as sure as there is iron in the soil of Yaesha, there is irony. I gave the impression, perhaps, that Yaesha was uninhabited at the arrival. This is not so. The Rin, perhaps they once thought to defend their forest, lash in that no ring could hope to withstand the onslaught of it. The Flying Ones have no talent for crystal craft. Lure, I know not who first discovered the potential for only that it is a whimsical god indeed it was a pad-footed Paxeltech who slew our guardian and brought the root. Perhaps as with Genus and the Voon. The strangeness is the point. It has done me a service unpayable. No reward can suffice. But perhaps, if it cannot be rewarded, it can be equipped. Colket brought war, then wisdom. Its forebears brought the root, but its wisdom stayed the flame. Take this now, as a token of my gratitude. The Pan must put their faith in action and belief, not weapons and walls. I forever owe it thanks, as shall the many souls scattered on these steps. To them I must tend. Be well, two-handed warrior. Be strange fate's agent.